My name is Julie Belew, and I am a former paralegal uh, and trying right now to break into the world of podcasting. I'm an editor, an audio editor. I did work in radio for 25 years, so I'm going to revisit those skills that I had, and I'm even considering podcasting about CVS. So,
Oh, that would be great. Podcasts are very popular right now.
mhm.
So why don't you start out by telling me how long you've had CVS?
Well, I don't have an official word on this from any kind of doctor. This is all what I have figured out with the help of CVSA and other research that I've done. But when I was a teenager, I did suffer from migraines quite a bit. And this is kind of what helped me was when I learned that other people who have this also suffered from migraines as teenagers. And the way that I would be able to get over a migraine at that time was to vomit. And I remember my mom had the same problem, and I thought that was how you got rid of migraines. And although it wasn't like an immediate release of the migraine to vomit, but it somehow it made me feel better. And so when I was in my 20s, I suffered from some of the same symptoms that I get nowadays. When I would drink and get hungover, I thought it was all related to drinking alcohol. And I quit drinking alcohol after a stint in the hospital. I spent about a week in the hospital in my 20s, and I'm almost 50, so this was a long time ago. And they didn't know what was causing it at all. No one had any clue. I had every test under the sun done, and really just chalked it up to alcohol is what it got blamed on then. And then it really almost disappeared in my 30s. I didn't notice it. I was raising my daughters then, and um, then in my 40s, it came back with a vengeance. About 5 years ago, it started up again, and these were way more intense episodes of and it all starts with a migraine for me. When I have a migraine, I wake up with a migraine. I know it's happening because I immediately feel nauseous. So in the last 2 years, I've had probably 10 episodes, and and I know that's not very many compared to other people, but but each time would last a week. And sometimes I would come in and out. I would get better for a day, go to work, and then the next day I'd have to call in sick again. I've lost so many jobs because of it. And that's why I'm currently in between jobs. I'm about to start a new job next week. But yeah, it's been tough.
Yeah, it's and even though some people don't have as many episodes as you said, it doesn't really matter because it still impacts your life as far as, your quality of life and, as you said, not being able to uh, keep a job at times. Um, so, if there was one CVS symptom you could get rid of, what would it be?
Gosh, I've debated that. What's worse, the migraine or the vomiting or the after effects? I'm going to go back. The weird thing is that I still hang on to that. The vomiting makes me feel better. I always feel better after I have hurled for a good 20 minutes or so, and it lasts for about 5 minutes. But it's just a relief to get like something that has to come out of me when it's happening. So I guess the worst part, it's really the after effects, because that's when the mind games start. That's when you start blaming yourself and thinking you're not strong enough. I'm going to be crying through this entire thing. Um, it's That's the hardest part is the after effects.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I can definitely see that. Um, What would you like people who don't under CVS to know about living with CVS?
That it's not understood right now, and that is why we have a hard time taking care of ourselves, because doctors don't know hardly anything about it, and um, and it's just it's it's not well known. Nobody knows about it. I mean, you go to a hospital, you go to an emergency room, and you expect a doctor to be able to tell you what's wrong with you, and they don't know. They can't tell you. I'm just lucky that I found out about cyclical vomiting syndrome by doing my own research. And if it weren't for my own search for answers, I wouldn't have any clue what this was. I, I, I had my gallbladder taken out. I've had so many um, things that I've tried to prevent it that haven't worked. So, it's like, I think that when you call in sick to work and you say you're vomiting and you've got the stomach flu for the sixth time in 6 months, your boss has a hard time believing you. And you're not making this up. This is nothing you can control, and it's really nothing you can fix until there's some more research done.
Absolutely. Can you describe how it makes you feel when you've come into a contact with a doctor that either doesn't believe you or has no idea what to do for you?
Well, that's been all of my doctors up until this last one. Um, they've all directed me in the wrong direction. So I don't believe them, I don't trust them, and I don't think they know what they're talking about. And that's, I'm sure that's not a justified thing, because there's reasons that they don't know about CVS. But I go to a doctor for their expert opinion, and when they don't have one that matches what my problem is, then I have a really hard time trusting them.
Yeah, and that's completely understandable. Completely understandable. If you didn't have CVS, would you imagine your life being different?
I wouldn't know what I was missing. So I would be just living my life like I want to, especially the last couple of years with all the episodes that I've dealt with. Um, I mean, they kind of snowballed for me uh, in the last few years. So um, now I just, it affects my depression. It affects my confidence in being able to work a job and have people count on me. That's probably the biggest part. Is it's not, maybe not just employers that can't count on me, but my family can't count on me to show up for Thanksgiving or important events. So I that's what I hate the
Yeah.
most, is
Yeah,
not being dependable.
there's definitely a social aspect as well that I don't think people realize for sure. If you could go back to the beginning of your CVS journey, what advice would you give yourself?
Do more research earlier. I don't know. I mean, there's just hasn't been enough information out there. I wish that CVS could have a celebrity spokesperson, somebody who could bring attention to it, so that the world can find out about it, so that people who are suffering, who don't know what it is, can find out what it is, and that the people who love them and the people who support them can continue to do so with the right information. And so I
Yeah,
just wish I had the right information from the very beginning. That would have been nice.
yeah, that's a very good point. Having the right information is absolutely a huge key to any illness
Yeah.
situation. Where do you see the biggest impact that CVS has had on your life? I know you've talked about your job situation a lot. Would you say that's the place in your life that CVS has had the biggest impact, or do you think that there's other things that have been impacted more?
Mostly my job. I mean, I'm a hard worker, and um, I I really get upset when people think that I can't live up to responsibilities that I have told them that I can do, that I can take care of. And so that's the hardest thing for me. I'm proud of the hard work that I've put into things, and I've given it 110%. But if it weren't for CVS, I mean, I still might be employed from 5 jobs ago, and who knows how much more money I could be making and a better title or something. I have no idea. My future could have been a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm giving up my the career that I chose. Okay, I did one career for 25 years. That was really fun. It was great, but it didn't pay very much. So I went back to school. I got another degree, and I decided I wanted to be a paralegal, that was something that I could count on and actually even be passionate about. I really enjoyed the work that I did. But because I would miss a week at a time, I don't blame employers for letting me go. They have to have someone who's in the office, and they need to know that they can count on them to be there. And I've told them in the interview that they can count on me to be there. And then as time goes on, they find out that I am not dependable. And that is the hardest.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so hard with CVS as well, because for most people, it's not predictable. So it's not like you can say, "Oh, I'm not going to be here next week or the following week." For most
Yeah,
people,
that'd
it
be
just
nice if you could tell a little bit about when it was going to happen. I I have determined um, that what causes mine is gluten. And it's only because my teenage daughter was like, I have a teacher who gets really sick a lot at school. Sounded very similar to my situation, and she gave up gluten, and she says that she's better. I didn't really know much about gluten or celiac disease or any of that stuff, and I have not been tested for celiac disease, but I immediately gave up gluten when my daughter said that. And I started controlling the food that I ate, making sure that I cooked it where I knew exactly what was going in it. Because when I didn't have control over what I ate, I noticed a correlation to me getting sick. So I really think it's gluten, and I have no way of knowing for sure that that's what causes CVS. But as long as I can control the food that I put in my mouth, and that's so hard to do because if you go out of town or if you go to a gathering, I mean, there's just so many things you cannot eat. It's really hard to control that. But having that little bit of knowledge for me gives me back some control. So it's been helpful, I think. And I've also started the Mido cocktail in the last 2 months. I have not gotten sick in 2 months.
oh,
I
that's
have
great.
not. Since the last job I was fired from.
That's good. That's great. That's great news. A lot of people have been able to, both with different foods and also on the Mito cocktail, definitely have some pretty,
I kind of wish I knew for sure which one it was.
yeah.
And I
Well, and
don't want to
sometimes
go
it's
eat gluten just to prove myself
right.
right on
Sometimes,
the Mido.
and
But
sometimes it's complex too. I mean, sometimes the triggers aren't quite as simple as you think they are. Or sometimes people have multiple triggers or
yeah,
multiple things that
a
can help them.
combination of some mathematical problem in your body,
Yeah,
probably.
for sure. For sure. So how was CBSA able to help you, and if so, how?
in my search, I think I just came across the CVSA in one of the Facebook groups that I'm a member of, and I'm like, immediately, what is that? You mean there's an organization? So I went on the site and I found the recommendations for medications, and I took that list to my doctor, and I said, look, this is it. I have all of these symptoms. I have all of these problems. This is me, and this is what's going to fix it. And so that's what helped was having a community backed by doctors, backed by medicine, that I could take an authority to my doctor and show them, hey, this is what is, they're recommending. This is a thing. So that, I mean, you guys made it legit is what happened.
That's great. And do you feel like your doctor listened when you brought that to information?
Oh yeah, it was like, oh, of course, this has got to be it. So having all of the other tests that I've paid for and losing my gallbladder and all these things that didn't necessarily have to happen, I'm trying to forgive that.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, let's start over again. So
yeah, it would be an interesting study to see how many adult CVS patients have had their gallbladder removed. Based
yeah,
on the people I talk to, I bet it's upwards of 60 or 70%. That would be my guess, but I really have
I'm gonna
no
say
idea.
90.
Yeah, for sure. Lastly, one word that you would use to describe CVS.
Evil.
Definitely
Do you want me to
not.
elaborate?
Nope, not at all. You don't need to elaborate at all.
Okay.
I think I asked you most of the questions, or you kind of talked about them without me asking you. Is there anything else you can think of that you want to share?
I just really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Anything I can do to help get the word out, or at least inform doctors, I I appreciate that so much. I just am still blown away at how little information about this is available to the medical, or maybe it's available. They just don't know about it, and I just don't understand the reasoning behind that. If I can find out the information that I need to get myself better, kind of think the doctors need to get on that bandwagon as well.
Yes, for sure. I would say most of the time, most CVS patients that walk into a doctor's office know more than the doctor they're speaking to, unless they're talking to an expert. And we do try really hard to educate, medical professionals, but you can only do so much, right? You can't force them to read up on it. So, um,
That's why I think a celebrity would be great. Someone who can bring attention to it.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's so weird that I have this rare disease. I mean, I survived cancer. I had breast cancer 6 years ago, and stage 3, and I went through chemo and radiation. Oh, that's what we'll say about CVS. It's worse than cancer. It's worse than cancer treatment. So, but anyway, I had to rely on the doctors to get through that, and so it's just been really such an odd thing to me that now it's just me with all the knowledge of how to fix my situation, and there's not a huge group of people that, I mean, like, apparently there is. CVSA is a huge group of people, right? And then also to meet people in the Facebook groups, to meet other people who are like me, that has been life-changing as well. Just to get the support, people who understand what you're going through. You can compare symptoms, and you compare what's happened to you because of it, that has been an amazing change in my life. So thank you for that.